Hi, I'm Katie Kempner, and we're here at the 3% Conference. And right now I'm speaking with Dr. Michael Kimmel, who is the head of the Center for the Study of Men and Masculinities at Stony Brook University. Welcome.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Katie.
So first of all, I have to start by asking you, masculinities. I didn't even realize that was a plural word.
I think it's a new idea, but I think part of the idea of why we call it masculinities and not masculinity is to acknowledge that there's a lot of different ways that you can be a man, a lot of different masculinities out there. Masculinity varies by race, by class, by region, by sexuality, by age, by ethnicity. I often ask my students, okay, imagine two American men. One is 75, black, gay, and lives in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And another one is white, 19, heterosexual, and lives on a farm 100 miles outside of Chicago. Now, don't you think they'd have some different ideas about what it means to be a man?
Yeah.
And don't you think they might have some things in common? So the reason that we say masculinities is to acknowledge that just because we make gender visible doesn't mean we ignore all of the other ways in which our identities are organized.
That makes a lot of sense. So tell us, and I know this is part of it, what you're here speaking about today.
My work basically is to figure out ways to engage men in the conversation around gender equality. Because I think we mistakenly think that gender equality is really about women. Mm-hmm. It's about gender equality. And what I'm here to do is to try to encourage men to think about themselves as stakeholders in the conversation about gender equality. So gender equality is not simply inviting you to join us, right? Making room for you, setting a place for you at the table. It's also about asking, what do we want at that table? What do we want on the menu? What do we want in the seating arrangements? And that is that gender equality is actually, if you listen to young men, mm-hmm. this is the important part. If you listen to what young men are saying, they are saying the same things that young women are saying. They want to have great careers. They want to be awesome dads. They want to be able to balance work and family. They want to have great family lives, great friends, great careers. And the only way that we are going to be able to have the lives we men say we want to have mm-hmm. is by supporting gender equality. So I'm here to bring men into that conversation, to invite men to see themselves not as, moving over and making room in the sofa for you, but rather as stakeholders in the conversation about gender equality.
And you talk about an interesting thing when you just spoke and you showed a picture of a cover of the New Yorker with all men in the playground and a woman coming in, and that things have changed so much, and yet they haven't really changed that much.
I think that's what it feels like to be in a time of tremendous transition. Sometimes you look back and you think, wow, things have really changed. My father's workplace looked like Don Draper's, and I grew up thinking my world would look like Don Draper's. Of course, it looks nothing like that. Well, my 16-year-old son, he has no such assumption. Your high school graduating, no such idea. So things have changed massively in just 40 short years. Think about what Title IX did in terms of bringing girls into playing sports. It's the biggest change in high schools, from about 11% in 1970 to 47% today. I mean, it's really quite astonishing. So when you look back, you think, wow, things have really changed. And then when you look forward, you think, boy, do we have a long way to go. That's what it's like to live in a moment of tremendous transition. We look back and we think we have come such a long way. We turn around and we think, wow, we have a long way to go.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about all the things that people are thinking about here and that I'm thinking about, and when I have my online show Perspectives, which has to do about women in balance, and it's very interesting talking to you because you're really saying something that many people say, which is it's not about women in balance, it's about people in balance and how everybody's going to do it.
If you look at the data, this is why I'm optimistic. If you look at the data for entry-level workers, Gen Y workers, millennials, women and men want the same thing.
Yeah.
This is no more Mars and Venus. This is planet Earth. Both women and men want the same sorts of things. And so the workplaces, the companies that are most successful in providing that are the ones that are going to retain the best talent.
I completely agree with you, although I do think that still women feel sort of inherently more, especially when it comes to parenting.
Oh, yeah.
More of the responsibility. So, I'm here now, but I'm also, we were just talking, my son's applying to college. He has something that has to get done today. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is it, I'm not sure that his dad is thinking the same thing to the same degree.
It is interesting. I think that that's also because we're looking backward and forward. Like, I don't know any women who don't worry about whether they're a good enough mother.
Yeah.
Because here you are working, and and our mom's generation, well, they greeted us every day we came home from school with fresh baked chocolate chip cookies right out of the oven. Well, you don't do that every day. You buy them at a store sometimes, and so women I know are all because they're comparing themselves to their own moms, whereas I don't know any dads who are sitting there and going, am I a good enough dad? Why? Because we're comparing ourselves to our dads. And if we wash the dishes more than once, we think, I am an awesome parent. I am so great. Because, it's like you do it once. So we're comparing ourselves to our dads. You're comparing yourselves to your moms. And it seems to me that that's where we get that kind of additional pressure. Do you know that working women spend more time with their children than their moms did?
Oh, I believe
Precisely because they're worried that they're not spending enough. Whereas, my grandmother, I don't think she spent very much time wondering whether she was spending enough time with her kids. Yeah. It's what she did.
Although I have to say, my mother was a very successful working woman.
Yeah.
She's the head of Head Start in Middlesex County.
Oh, wow, interesting. But my mom was one of those Betty Friedan moms, which is my mom tried to go I'm going to be a great housewife and elementary school teacher. So my kids will be at school while I'm at school, but I'll always be there. And she was miserable. And when Feminine Mystique came out, it changed her life too. She went, wow, that's right. I'm a prisoner here. This is terrible. I don't want this.
And last year was the 50th anniversary of Feminine Mystique, and so much has changed and so much hasn't. I just wanted to touch on one more thing about working, and then I have one more question for you, which is last year there was a study in the Harvard Business Review that was discussed in the Harvard Business Review, and it talked about very successful CEOs and how men CEOs, if they couldn't be with their families because they were working, they thought to themselves, well, you know what, I need to work, I'm supporting my family. And female CEOs who also were the breadwinners for their family, if they couldn't be with their family because they were working, felt horribly racked with guilt over it.
Right.
So what, in your opinion, needs to change there?
Well, I think that it really is illustrative, again, of where we are in this trajectory. Because we men are raised to think that's how we take care of our families. We take care of our families by earning a living and by supporting them. And we all feel good. We're raised to feel good. It's not a bad thing to feel good when you do well in the workplace and you're successful and you feel like you're supporting your family, and that's a way of nurturing. Now, the organ of the body that is the nurturing organ is not the wallet. And so this is important for men to recognize that there's something else going on about your heart, your time, your energy. And so I think a lot of men, and I think that this is increasingly true, that time spent away from children, time spent away from family life is seen as a sacrifice rather than as something positive, right? And so we're moving in that direction. So you ask, what has to change?
Yeah.
Here's what I think has to change. About 40 years ago, I'm going to use this phrase from the LGBT movement, women came out at home and said, you know what, I want a career. I'm going to have a great career. I want to really be out in the public world. I want to have a place out there. And they came out to their families as workers, so to speak. And what never happened is men who were already out to their families as workers, what men need to do is they need to come out in the workplace as dads. They need to say, you know what, as a father, as a parent. Because you see, the thing is, right now in our workplaces, here's something that really needs to change. How do we, there are a lot of policies that would enable companies to be more family friendly. On-site childcare, flexible working hours, parental leave. How do we think about those issues? We think of them as women's issues, right?
for the
They're
most
not
part.
women's issues. They're parents' issues. When men start identifying publicly as parents, we will say, you know what? I need flex time. I need parental leave. I want on-site childcare because I want to be able to be there in my kid's life. And I know that, it's not going to happen if I try to schedule, quality time once a week with my kid.
And it seems like the United States especially is much farther behind other countries, like European countries, that seem to more understand fathers' needs. Am I right about that?
Well, I would take it even further. It's not even we're not just far behind Europe. We're far behind Asia, Africa, and Latin America. There's only 4 countries in the world, only 4. And even President Obama noticed this in his State of the Union address last year. There's only 4 countries in the world that don't offer paid parental leave, that is paid by the government, to anyone. And those 4 are Lesotho, Swaziland, Papua New Guinea, and the United States. So that is a national embarrassment.
Yeah.
My guess is there are more people in Lesotho who are embarrassed about this than we are right now. I think we need to be thinking about how can we proclaim louder than any other country our commitment to family values. I think we have to start developing policies that enable us to actually value families. That we want to say, because we love families so much and we value families so much, I want the resources of the state to be put in your hands so that you can balance work and family, so that you can have that kind of relationship, so you can keep your family stronger. This is not a red state or blue state issue.
Yeah.
This is as purple as it gets. We want to strengthen families. How do we do that? We put the resources of the state into families' hands.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So just to end, if there's one thing for the young people walking around here today, there's mostly women, but men too, that you could share with them about where you think all of this needs to go, what would that be?
Well, I tend to be very optimistic, and I tend to be optimistic for several reasons. One of which is that I'm a teacher, so I believe that enabling my students to engage with their world, their lives will be better. And I'm optimistic because I'm an activist, and I believe that change is possible and happening as we're speaking. So in my optimism, I would say to the women 2 things. The first thing I would say is, don't give up your commitment to gender equality. The media is bombarding you constantly with, give it up, you have to opt out, you won't be able to get a man. All of these kinds of constant stories that turn out after a few years of investigation turn out not to be so true. Don't give it up, because the simple truth is number one, men are not going to change unless women push us to, right? We will not see the dirt on the living room floor unless somebody says, it would be nice if you vacuumed occasionally, right? So that's our first thing. But the second thing is, there's one thing that is different in young women's lives that's different from when I started doing this work 25 years ago, and I think it is the biggest point of leverage. 25 years ago, I would walk into my classes and I would ask, how many of you have a good friend of the opposite sex? 25 years ago, I would get maybe 10% of the students, because 25 years ago was when Harry Met Sally came out.
Oh, is that right?
And, Billy Crystal says to Meg Ryan, women and men can't be friends because sex always gets in the way. I walk into a class now and I say, is there anyone in here who doesn't have a good friend of the opposite sex? I never see a hand anymore. Yeah. The biggest change in young people's lives is cross-sex friendships. Now, think about the politics of friendship for a minute. Who do you make friends with? You make friends with your boss? Make friends with your subordinates? No. You make friends with your peers. People you can see as your equals. So, young people coming into the workplace today have more experience in interpersonal gender equality than any generation that has ever lived on this planet. This can't help but be good. Yeah. This is really good news. Because what's going to happen when they enter the workplace? They're comfortable working on teams. They're comfortable working collaboratively. Sexual harassment is going to go down because they know what it's like to treat a non-family member as somebody of value. I think this is what makes me most optimistic.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, it makes me optimistic hearing this too.
Thanks.
Thanks talking to us.
Thank you.